coming up on this special edition of Jerusalem Dateline, an in-depth conversation with Alan Dershowitz on Israel 2 years after October 7th, how terror has become normalized as a tool that works for effecting change, leaving Western civilization on the skids. Plus, the groundswell of Christian support making a difference in Israel's fight for survival. All this and more coming up on this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. Hello and welcome to this special edition of Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Julie Stahl. On today's program, we're departing from our usual format to bring you excerpts from our recent conversation with distinguished law expert Alan Dershowitz. But before we dive in, here's the latest from our news desk. The UK led the way on Sunday recognizing a Palestinian state, followed by Canada, Australia, and Portugal.
In the face of the growing horror in the Middle East, we are acting to keep alive the possibility of peace and a two-state solution. That means a safe and secure Israel alongside a viable Palestinian state.
Unilateral recognition of a Palestinian state and the situation in Gaza are expected to dominate this week's UN General Assembly. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says there will not be a Palestinian state in the West Bank.
At the UN, I will present the truth. This is Israel's truth, but it is the objective truth in our righteous struggle against the forces of evil and our vision for real peace, peace from strength.
Netanyahu said the recognition delivers one message.
I have a clear message to those leaders who recognize the Palestinian state after the terrible massacre of October 7th. You are giving a huge price to terrorism, and I have another message for you. It will not happen. There will be no Palestinian state west of the Jordan.
Despite the argument that the decision would sideline Hamas and bring peace, Hamas took credit for the recognition, saying it's because of their October 7th invasion and massacre of Israelis. Palestinians in Ramallah welcomed the decision and made their ultimate goal clear.
We also hope to see a complete Palestinian state from the sea to the river.
Israeli legal expert Eugene Kontorovich says supporters can say what they want, but a Palestinian state doesn't exist.
They have complete independence, autonomy. Israel's not controlling their lives. So what would a state give them that they don't have now? The ability to buy weapons on the international market and the ability to open their borders and bring in jihadis from around the world. So imagine October 7th, except this time, instead of machine guns and gliders, they have airplanes and artillery and millions of people who've come to join them on jihad from around the world.
Therefore, he says, Israel cannot allow the establishment of a Palestinian state. In Israel, there is talk of extending Israeli sovereignty over biblical Judea and Samaria, also known as the West Bank, thereby preventing the establishment of a Palestinian state. Netanyahu says he'll deliver Israel's official response after he meets with President Trump following his UN speech. Harvard law professor and civil rights expert Alan Dershowitz has been involved in Israeli affairs for the last 4 decades as an advisor to U.S. presidents and Israeli prime ministers. He recently shared his thoughts on the post-October 7th world as it affects Western civilization and what Prime Minister Netanyahu described as the battle for truth. Here's the first of our interview segments.
Alan Dershowitz, great to be with you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
How would you describe, here we are almost 2 years into the war after October 7th, how would you describe where the West is right now?
If Hamas had to do it over again, and they knew everything that was going to happen, they would do it over again. Because they would say, all right, a lot of our terrorists have been killed, a lot of our leaders are being killed, but look at what it's done to Israel. France and England and Canada and Australia are now going to recognize a Palestinian state. The PA, Palestinian Authority, couldn't get that done. We're getting that done. It's going to strengthen the hand of Hamas. So in some respects, Hamas has won. It has been benefited by terrorism. And Israel has lost by playing by the rules, by complying with the rule of law. And it's all the fault of the international community. It's the fault of the New York Times. It's the fault of CNN. It's the fault of the United Nations. It's the fault of Harvard and my university and other universities to turning Israel into a villain for doing exactly what every other country in the world would do, fighting back against terrorists who kill their civilians.
You talked about an inflection point that the West is at. Can you expound on that? What is that?
This is a very important point in American history and in world history, because it will determine whether groups all over the world that have grievances against their countries will resort to terrorism. The clear message that's being sent by the international community is use terrorism. It works. It will get you what you want. Don't play by the rules. Don't comply with the rule of law. Don't comply with Judeo-Christian traditions. No, use terrorism. Terrorism works. Look what Hamas got. They got something that the Palestinian Authority tried to get for years and couldn't get. Recognition without giving up anything. It's the greatest victory for terrorism. Terrorism works. And it only works because CNN makes it work, the New York Times makes it work, and the UN makes it work.
Coming up, the ancient scourge of anti-Semitism rearing its head in new ways in modern times.
Right after October 7th, this was groundswell of anti-Semitism around the world. How would you describe this plight of Israel and the Jewish people worldwide now?
Tragically, anti-Semitism has been with us since the book of Esther, when a certain people were picked out for genocide. Anti-Semitism has been the norm. There was a moratorium against anti-Semitism after the Holocaust for half a century, but many of the anti-Semites of the world, whether consciously or unconsciously, were looking for an excuse, and October 7th provided an excuse. It showed that Israel wasn't as strong as people thought it was, and as soon as Israel's weakness was uncovered by its failure to prevent October 7th, the bullies started to attack. Harvard University on October 7th, October 8th, started issuing resolutions, student groups, including Amnesty International at Harvard, blaming October 7th on the Jews. The Social Democrats of America, the party that's running a candidate now for mayor of New York, Mamdani, they blamed October 7th on Israel and on the Jewish people, and yet people are going to vote for this guy. And so, anti-Semitism tragically has been a norm. Thank God that the vast majority of Christian churches have really been on the forefront of attacking and condemning anti-Semitism and supporting Israel on both biblical grounds and moral grounds. And I think every Zionist in the world appreciates how much support they've gotten from our Christian brothers. I'm reminded of a story that Bill Clinton told me when he was president. He said in 2000, when they were negotiating what could have been a state for the Palestinians, that Yasser Arafat said to him, "I don't know why the Jews have to live in Israel. There's no Jewish connection to Israel. Jews have never lived in Israel." Clinton got mad at him and said, "You're undercutting my religion. Forget about Judaism. If Jews didn't live here, if there wasn't a temple, then the stories in the New Testament can't be true. There was no turning over the tables of the moneylenders. There was no crucifixion. There was no Easter rising. Don't ever," he said, "deny the connection of the Jewish people to the land of Israel, because that denies Christianity as much as it denies Judaism."
How about how important is the support of Christians around the world for the Jewish people in Israel?
At a time when so many Jews are abandoning Israel for the left, the support of Christians, evangelical Christians, Christians of every denomination couldn't be more important. I have to tell you that is as important as the Iron Dome is. The Iron Dome of Christianity has probably done more to protect Israel from the oppression and hatred than almost any military weapon. So thank God for those Christians who stand up in support of Israel. I'll never forget going to a Christian event in West Virginia, and I was speaking, and a woman came over to me, And she said, you know, there are only two countries in the world I would give up my life for. One, the United States, the other, Israel. And then you have these fools who come and tell me, oh, don't take seriously the support of Christians for Israel. They only want to convert you. I said, that just isn't true. Of course, it's a part of Christian tradition to try to convert. That's fine. That's the marketplace of ideas. Try to convert me, I'll listen. If I accept it, I'll accept it. If not, you'll love me just as much. So I don't believe that Christian support for Israel is conditional or is based on the hope of someday, you know, Jesus coming back because of Israel. No, I think it's unequivocal, unconditional love and support based not only in the Bible, but on moral principles and on a realization that Israel is on the forefront of protecting the Judeo-Christian tradition from assault.
Talking about anti-Semitism, you were the subject recently of anti-Semitism when you were refused service for wearing a T-shirt.
Yeah.
What happened there, and what are you doing?
Well, I don't ever take anything sitting down. I've been going to the farmers market in Martha's Vineyard for 50 years. I went there to defend a liberal, Ted Kennedy, and I also defended Bill Clinton from the Martha's Vineyard. And I go every Wednesday to the market and I buy my fruit and my corn. And this is the first time a vendor refused to serve me. He was selling pierogi and I had been wearing a shirt saying I'm a proud American Zionist, and he wouldn't serve me. And I asked him why, and he said he just, you know, disagrees with my politics. And I said, let's discuss it. There's no reason for not selling me. And so I asked the farmers market to change the rules and require that every vendor be willing to sell to anybody. And I think they're going to do it.
Still ahead, refuting accusations of genocide with statistics the world doesn't hear about.
How would you describe the prosecution of the war by the IDF? Many people say it's genocide, there's war crimes. How would you respond?
Genocide is a very important word. It was invented by a Jew following the Holocaust to describe the Holocaust. Nothing could be further from genocide than a war that Israel didn't choose, that was imposed on it by the murder, rape, beheadings of 1,200 people and the kidnapping of 250 people. And Israel conducted the war with more concern for civilian casualties than any army in modern history. On D-Day, many thousands of innocent French people were killed. No, none of them purposely, but that's what happens in the fog of war. The ratio of civilians to combatants generally in wars is between 7-to-1 and 10-to-1. That is 7 civilians for every combatant. In Israel's case, Israel claims the ratio is about 1.2-to-1, almost 1-to-1. Okay, that's their version. The Hamas version is no, it's almost 3-to-1. Even if Hamas is correct, and they're not. Why are they not correct? They count 19-year-olds as children. They count women who are firing rockets as women, not as combatants. So whatever the ratio is, 3-to-1, 2-to-1, 1-to-1, it's better than any army has ever achieved in a comparable war. It's not even close. Better than the United States achieved in Afghanistan and Iraq. Certainly better than any army achieved in the Second World War. As ambassador to Israel from the United States, Mike Huckabee said to the British Prime Minister, "Don't forget Dresden. You bombed Dresden. Dresden was a civilian city. Don't forget Hiroshima. Don't forget Nagasaki. Don't forget Berlin. Don't forget Tokyo." What Israel has done is so far away from genocide that I have one point that I'd like to make to everybody. Anybody who claims that Israel's committed genocide has lost their credibility on any issue relating to Israel. Ignore anything else they say. They have disqualified themselves from serious discourse when they use the word genocide to describe Israel's compliance with the rules of law.
Would you agree with the Prime Minister who said that we are in a battle of truth? And how would you describe this battle for truth?
I have never in my 87 years or my 65 years of political activism seen so much untruth being circulated in so many quarters. I have a shirt that somebody sent me. It says, "Is it true, or did you read it in the New York Times?" Or is it true, or did you see it on CNN? There are so many lies.
Yeah. What's at stake in this battle of truth?
What's at stake in this battle of truth is civilization. Are we going to live in a world of truth, or are we going to live in a world of make-believe? George Orwell wrote about this nearly 100 years ago, and his predictions, tragically, are coming true. We now live in a world where truth is a factor of the weak. Truth, you need truth, you must be weak. We don't need truth, we're on the right side. When you see these demonstrations on college campuses, when you see these faculty members teaching their students bold-faced lies, calling Israel a colonialist, settler state. I mean, Israel fought against colonialism. Menachem Begin blew up the King David Hotel because it was the centerpiece of the English colonial occupation. Israel is the personification of anti-colonialism. You know what the personification of colonialism is? New Zealand. Why? New Zealand strangers who had no connection to the land sailed halfway across the world, conquered the islands, murdered and massacred the Maori, many of them, and then took over and became a white colonialist settler state. And yet New Zealand leads the UN in always condemning Israel. What did Israel do? It was a return to Zion. I bought my wife a coin the other day when I was here in Israel, which has on it written in ancient Hebrew the word for the victory of Zion, for the victory 2,000 years ago. Every prayer in the Jewish Siddur is about the return to Zion. Jews who came to Israel were returning home. This was not colonialism. This was the Jewish national anthem. When I sang it as a kid, as a 7-year-old, the words were very clear. To return, lashuv la'eretz avotenu, to return to the land of our fathers and mothers. That's what Zionism was. There's always been a Jewish presence here. And the Jewish presence way precedes the Muslim presence or the Arab presence. And so this is the last thing you can ever call colonialism, and we have to keep telling the truth.
Yeah, Professor Dershowitz, it's been a real privilege to be with you. Any final thoughts?
My final thoughts are Israel is the canary in the mine, because if Hamas wins here, you think they're going to stop? You think Iran is going to stop? No. If terrorism is rewarded, it's coming to a theater near you, and it's going to be used as the primary mechanism for trying to undo what people believe are evils. People will say, well, don't bother with elections. Don't bother with trying to persuade people. Just blow up a few synagogues, blow up a few churches, kill a few rabbis, kill a few priests, and we'll get what we want because the world rewards terrorism. That is not the world any of us wants to live in.
Yeah. Professor Dershowitz, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
When we come back, CBN Israel brings us a homecoming story, and we revisit some traditions for Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year. The clash of ideologies Professor Dershowitz just spoke about is an effort by the West to prevent terror around the world. The woman in our next story fled terror and war all her life and ultimately found her home in Israel. She also got practical support when she needed it from CBN Israel. Take a look.
Born just before Germany invaded the Soviet Union, Golda's life began amidst the chaos of World War II. Her father was killed in the brutal battle for Leningrad, but her mother's quick action saved her from the same fate.
My mother lost everything in the bombings. We evacuated, but there was no food. My mother constantly worried for her 2 small children.
The deep sadness of war followed Golda throughout her life, its long shadow stretching even after she moved to Israel, where life remained a challenge. Now at 84, she continues to summon incredible strength.
I am grateful to Israel, even though it was very, very hard in the beginning. I cried all the time. It is very hard for a person to be alone, very hard.
When Golda connected with CBN Israel, we quickly recognized her need for assistance in getting her apartment in order. Because of you, Golda received a brand new washing machine and assistance with much needed repairs in her apartment.
I am so happy. Now the laundry only takes a short time. It's wonderful.
CBN Israel brought hope and joy into Golda's life. Especially in this time of war, she now has a constant reminder that someone truly cares for her.
Thank you for your attention, for your kindness, which is very important at such an age. This is very important. Thank you very much.
It's the biblical Feast of Trumpets this week, when Jewish people around the world celebrate the holiday, also known as Rosh Hashanah, the head of the year. It's a time for prayer, festive meals, the blowing of the shofar, and proclaiming God as the King of the universe. Here's a little bit more about this important holiday. Well, that's all for this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. Thanks for joining us. Please keep praying for Israel, the IDF soldiers, and all those caught in harm's way. And as always, pray that the hostages come home safely and soon. And remember, the God who watches over Israel and you and me neither slumbers nor sleeps. I'm Julie Stahl. From all of us here at the Jerusalem Bureau, Shana Tova Umetuka. A very happy and sweet new year. And we'll see you next time on Jerusalem Dateline.